She confessed to the wrong millionaire boss at 3 a.m. What happened next will shock you. In the heart of a dimly lit penthouse, where shadows danced like phantoms, Clara's heart raced. It was 3 a.m., and the world outside was silent. The air was thick with unspoken truths, secrets lurking in the corners, waiting for the right moment to leap out. Her palms trembled as she faced Nathan Price, the infamous billionaire known for both his ruthless business tactics and uncharted emotions. One confession, the wrong revelation could change everything. As Clara's breath hitched, her voice was barely a whisper. "I need to tell you something." Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. An unanswered question loomed large. Had she crossed a line she didn't even know existed? Nathan's piercing gaze bore into her. An ocean of unyielding steel. He was reputedly charming one moment and terrifying the next. A man with a reputation that sent shivers down spines. Her gut twisted at the thought. What if this revelation could send waves crashing through both their lives? She had heard the rumors swirling like leaves in a tempest about deals made in the dead of night, about lives ruined over lost profits. Right then she wished she could turn back time, to that fleeting second of doubt before she'd spoken. With every shared glance a silent tension crackled in the air, thick enough to slice. She felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her, the judgment of ghosts who whispered behind her back. Was it just the two of them, or were the walls listening too? Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Tension hung in the room like a storm cloud. Clara's pulse quickened as Nathan's lips curled slightly. Was that a smirk? With a sudden movement, he leaned closer, and she felt the warmth of his breath brush against her face. "You think you know me? You have no idea what I can do," he murmured, his voice low and dangerously inviting. The clock ticked loudly, each second echoing like the countdown of a looming disaster. Clara felt a lump in her throat, the very air around them thick with uncertainty. Her confession was more than a slip. It was a key to a box of chaos she was not ready to open. She cast a glance out the large window. The city sprawled beneath them, alive yet oblivious, a world where decisions were made without consequence. But here within these walls every choice had a price, and she was terrified to find out how much hers would cost. Could the night really hold the answers she was seeking? Or was it going to bury her deeper? And just then, as if to answer her prayer or her nightmare, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. Clara's heart thudded in her chest as the darkness enveloped her, every shadow morphing into a threat. Fear clawed at her insides. She could hear Nathan's breath, steady and measured, the only sound in a world that swallowed alive. Was she alone in this void, or was he still right there, inches away, watching her? "Clara!" His voice sliced through the blackness, low and smooth, a whisper that danced along her skin. "What's the bold secret you've kept locked away?" The uncertainty of his question hung heavy like a noose. She swallowed hard, her thoughts racing. There was no going back now. Not after she'd confessed, whatever that had meant. What would he do with this fragile piece of her soul? Suddenly, the room flickered back to life, and the illumination revealed Nathan's face, shadows accentuating the sharp lines of his jaw. The smirk had vanished, replaced by an expression that sent another jolt of adrenaline coursing through her veins. He looked both intrigued and somewhat dangerous, and that was a juxtaposition that paralyzed her. "Did you think revealing your truth would scare me?" he challenged, stepping closer, his presence overwhelming. Clara recoiled subtly, but the wall behind her was as firm as the resolve she desperately needed. "I never meant to." His finger brushed against her lips, silencing her. "You need to finish what you started, Clara. What did you come here to tell me? Because believe me," he leaned in, breathing warmly across her face, "I have my own secrets too." Every part of her wanted to flee, to escape his grasp, both physical and emotional. But they were locked in this fraught moment. She wrestled with the turmoil in her chest, the weight of his stare forcing her to confront the truth she had so desperately tried to hide. With a sudden rush of bravery, she retorted, "You don't scare me, Nathan. You might have power in the boardroom, but I have my own strength. Is that what you think? He replied, a hint of humor dancing in his eyes, but the threat still resided beneath the surface. Strength is nothing if you refuse to wield it. Before she could respond, the lights flickered again, and this time the room trembled as if the building itself were aware of their tension. Then with a jarring crash, a loud noise erupted from outside, causing her heart to leap. Nathan turned sharply to the window, eyes narrowing. Clara followed his gaze, and her blood ran cold. A black sedan had screeched to a halt on the street below, and out poured figures cloaked in darkness, a hit squad, she hypothesized. Surely it couldn't be a coincidence. Were they here for him? Or her? Desperation surged. Nathan, she gasped, panic now coursing through her veins. What is happening? His expression turned from amusement to stone-cold seriousness. We have to go. Now. With no time to spare, Nathan grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward the back of the penthouse. His strength was alarming, yet somehow reassuring. As they sprinted for the emergency staircase, Clara's mind spun faster than her feet could move. Who were those men? What did Nathan have to do with them? They burst through the door to the stairwell, and Nathan ushered her in ahead of him, the air thickening with urgency. Whatever happens, don't look back, he ordered, his fierce gaze locking onto hers, full of intensity. Why not? She shot back, though her instincts screamed at her to trust him. Because, he said, urgent and breathless, what's behind us may be worse than what lies ahead. And just when they thought they were in the clear, a loud bang reverberated through the staircase, freezing them in their tracks. What was waiting for them at the bottom? Clara held her breath, knowing that whatever lay ahead could change everything. The echo of the bang faded into a thick silence, leaving Clara's heart pounding against her ribcage like a caged animal. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, propelling her into motion. She took a deep breath, willing herself to still the panic flooding her thoughts. Nathan's grip tightened on her wrist as he pulled her forward, descending the cold metal stairs 2 or 3 steps at a time. The stark fluorescent lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced around them. She could feel the tension radiating off him, every ounce of focus trained on navigating the dimly lit stairwell. Keep moving, he hissed, his voice low but urgent, nearly drowned out by the rumble of their footsteps. What lay at the bottom? A group of armed men, intent on reaching them? Or something far worse that they couldn't even begin to comprehend? Clara felt a chill snake up her spine. Nathan, who are they? Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of dread. I don't know, he grit his teeth, a muscle in his jaw twitching. But we can't stop now. They wouldn't be here unless something went very wrong. Her mind raced. Something clearly had gone terribly wrong. Had Nathan crossed the line somewhere? Was this about the secrets he had hinted at? Questions spiraled, threatening to consume her, but fear spurred her to push them aside. They reached the bottom floor, the door leading to the lobby looming in front of them like a gateway into the unknown. Clara glanced back, the urge to look over her shoulder almost overpowering. Nathan, she warned, spotting movement through a small cracked window in the door. Shadows shifted just outside, silhouetted figures pacing with purpose. Don't! Nathan snapped, yanking her forward just as a shadowy shape drifted closer. With a sudden burst of resolve, Clara threw the door open, and they tumbled into the lobby, their breaths ragged. Inside, the normally polished space felt infinitely more menacing, the stark white walls closing in on them as they darted for the exit. Where do we go? Clara panted, scanning the room in frantic desperation. The street outside looked deceptively calm, but she knew that lurking danger could be seconds behind them. Back to my car. We can slip out through the parking garage, Nathan replied, his eyes shining with determination, his grip on her hand firmer than ever. Without hesitation, he led her through the lobby toward a door marked garage, the sound of their footsteps echoing ominously. Just then, voices erupted behind them, and the heavy sound of boots hitting the floor sent her heart into a surge of panic. Hurry! Nathan urged, propelling them forward. She pushed against the door, gasping as they stumbled into the cool shadows of the garage. The concrete floor felt cold beneath her feet. The silence here was heavy and suffocating. The car's just down here, Nathan said confidently, yet Clara saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Her panic turned to urgency. fear now a physical presence gnawing at her insides. They raced toward the car, and she caught a glimpse of Nathan furrowing his brow, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. An explosion of loud voices broke through the air as they neared the vehicle. Clara froze, her heart now a frozen stone in her chest. "Oh no," she whispered, instinct screaming for them to hide. They ducked behind a parked vehicle just as the door to the garage burst open. "Split up. Find them," a voice shouted, filled with harsh authority. Panic turned her blood cold. Clara's mind was a whirlwind, the tangled threads of confusion threatening to unravel her thoughts. Who were these people? What had Nathan done to summon them? "Stay down," Nathan whispered, his breath hot against her ear. She could see their shoes heavy and booted moving past them, the urgency mounting with each second. "Nathan," she murmured, "what are we going to do?" He pressed a finger to his lips, urging silence. The tension thickened as he surveyed their surroundings, muscles coiling with intensity. The air was electric with danger, a sense of impending confrontation looming closer and closer, and just when a sliver of hope flickered in Clara's chest, there it was, a flash of movement, a figure turning toward them, scanning the shadows with a predatory focus. Fear twisted inside her, pushing her pulse into a storm. Would they find them? Would they survive this night? Or would Nathan's secrets consume them both? Time seemed to stretch as they crouched behind the car. Clara's breath shallow and quick. She could hear her own heartbeat, thudding violently in her ears, drowning out the chaos around them. The metallic taste of fear lingered in her mouth as she squeezed Nathan's hand tightly, as if that connection could act as a shield against the impending threat. The footsteps paused, boots heavy against the concrete. Clara barely dared to breathe, every instinct screaming for them to run, to escape, but Nathan's silent command held her in place. She could see his sharp eyes darting to the shadows, calculating their next move. "Are you sure they're here?" A voice boomed from the entrance of the garage, the authoritative tone sending a ripple of dread down Clara's spine. "Positive. They went this way," another voice chimed in, something sinister hiding behind the assurance. "They can't have gone far. Check those cars." Panic surged again as one of the looming figures moved closer to their hiding spot. Clara's stomach twisted painfully at the thought of being found, of what these men would do. They were hunting prey, and she and Nathan were the targets. For God's sake, they must not get out. The first voice barked. Clara felt Nathan tense beside her, like a coiled spring ready to snap. With a quiet resolve, he whispered, "I'm going to distract them. Just stay quiet and follow my lead." On my count. Before she could respond, he slipped from behind the car, moving like a shadow towards the nearest group, his body low and deliberate. Clara's stomach dropped, and her pulse quickened. "Nathan, no." She barely managed to speak, fear lacing her whisper, but it was too late. He was already out in the open, his hands raised in an attempt to signal no threat as he approached them. "Hey, over here," he called out, his voice steady, but Clara could hear the tension. The figures turned, eyes narrowing with suspicion as they took stock of the unexpected intruder. "Get back," one shouted, raising a hand, but Nathan pressed on, his eyes flickering with desperation, the kind that could only be born of hope or madness. Clara barely heard the reply as adrenaline coursed through her. She peered from behind the car, debating whether to bolt or trust Nathan's instincts, but the weight of the moment pressed her into inaction. "Why don't you come to me instead?" Nathan taunted, a reckless edge to his voice. The men exchanged glances, their postures shifting as if they were weighing their options, uncertainty growing between them. "Fool," one spat, advancing with a hand on the weapon at his waistband. "You think it's going to end like this? You have no idea the trouble you're in." Clara clenched her jaw, the words cutting through the noise around her, the truth washing over her like a cold wave. Nathan's gaze flicked back to her, the fear and determination playing across his features. "Run, Clara," he shouted. But before she could move, it happened. The world around her exploded into chaos. Shouts, profane interventions, and a commotion as Nathan lunged toward the men. Everything shifted. Panic set in, and Clara could feel her instincts taking over, propelling her forward into action. "Stop!" she screamed, her voice cracking, raw with desperation. But their eyes were on Nathan, and in that split moment, she realized how far he was willing to go to protect her. He would face them head-on, despite the odds. Suddenly, a loud bang resonated in the garage, echoing off the walls like a gunshot. Clara froze, heart racing. Or was that a sound of gunfire? She had to choose. Stay with Nathan and risk it all, or run and hope he had a chance. Before she could decide, another voice, familiar yet chilling, sliced through the air. The game has only just begun. Her heart sank, and as she turned, eyes wide with horror, Clara faced the looming figure she never wanted to see again. What had she stepped into? And would they both be ready for whatever came next? Clara's breath hitched as recognition set in, and every horrifying memory associated with that voice surged back. The tall figure before her, silhouetted against the dim light of the garage, was none other than Adrian, her past intertwined with shadows, regret, and the ghost she thought she had buried. Adrian, she breathed, the name escaping her lips like an unwanted curse. His lips curled into a smirk, sharp enough to cut. Surprised to see me, Clara? Or should I say the hunted? Panic engulfed Clara, and instinct kicked in again. She had to get Nathan away from this chaos to safety. Nathan! She screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. Adrian chuckled, amusement dancing in his cold, dark eyes. Ah yes, Nathan. Your loyal knight. But you know, lovebirds like you never last long in this game. The thud of footsteps echoed loudly as the men began to swarm around Nathan, who was still straining to grasp their attention. Clara's heart plummeted. She had to do something. Let him go, she shouted, stepping forward. "'Smee you want. Just let him go." Adrian raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "You think your life holds weight in this twisted play? How sweet." He crossed his arms, scanning the scene as if he were observing a particularly amusing show. In the distance, Clara could hear Nathan yelling, struggling against the men now wrestling him to the ground. It felt as though the world had slowed down, every second stretching painfully as she weighed her options. Enough. Adrian's voice sliced through her thoughts. Your fate is not just tied to him, Clara. It's about the choices you make. And right now you're making a poor one. Stop this. Clara screamed, tears forming. You don't have to do this. Every game has its rules. Some people just don't get to play. He stepped closer, his menacing presence dominating the space between them. Now you must decide. Save him or save yourself. Clara's heart raced, adrenaline surging. She had sacrificed so much already. The memory of her father's stern warnings echoed through her mind. Warnings about making enemies. The stakes were higher now, and Arden was the worst kind. With a trembling hand, she clutched a piece of metal she had found on the ground. It was cold, but it gave her a flicker of strength. If you want me, then take me. Just let him go. Nathan screamed again, a sound that broke through the fog of fear, grounding her. Clara, don't. He shouted. Run. Please. She felt the weight of their connection unraveling even as she tightened her grip on the makeshift weapon. The men laughed, a cold, chilling sound that filled the room. You think you can save him? Adrian taunted, moving closer. Tell me, Clara, how much do you love him? The question hung in the air, heavy, the laughter fading as a tense silence enveloped them. In that moment, Clara realized the game was bigger than her heart. It was a matter of survival, hers and Nathan's. Please, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, as hopelessness washed over her. Before she could fathom another word, Nathan's struggle intensified violently. The crack of a fist connecting with flesh rang out, echoing through the chaos, causing the henchman to momentarily falter. Now, Nathan yelled. The command shot through her. It was time to act. Just as the figures reoriented towards Nathan, Clara lunged forward, heart pounding. She had to break through. For Nathan. For herself. The tension thickened like a storm cloud, and time hung in a fragile balance as Clara raised her weapon. Was she ready to fight? What would she choose in a moment where every second mattered? And more importantly, could they escape the embrace of a monster who deemed them mere players in his game? The moment Clara lunged, adrenaline surged through her like a lightning bolt. Her heart pounded wildly against her ribs, each beat echoing the urgency of the scene unfolding around her. The faces of Adrian's men twisted in surprise, their attention momentarily diverted. Clara seized the opportunity, the metal piece cutting into her palm, grounding her resolve. Clara, no. Nathan shouted again, his voice strained from the weight of the men holding him down. But she couldn't allow fear to paralyze her. Not now. Not when the stakes had reached a boiling point. She sprinted forward, her feet pounding against the concrete floor, the world around her blurring into a chaotic whirlwind. Adrian's laughter followed her, taunting and sinister. You really think you can save him, Clara? You're just tightening the noose around your own neck. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown, the threat of Adrian's darkness looming behind her. She pushed her fears aside, zeroing in on Nathan, who was a few feet away, struggling valiantly. Their eyes met, and in that split second, Clara saw a flicker of hope mirrored in his gaze. Hold on, she cried out, the rawness of her voice filling the air as she lunged at the nearest thug. The weapon swung through the air, connecting with the man's shoulder. The grunt of surprise ignited a flame of defiance within her. She didn't stop, she couldn't. With a wild swing she struck again, her movements fueled by desperation. Her blows were fueled by love and fear, the driving force of every heartbeat. Adrian stepped back, surprise flashing across his face as the chaos unfolded. What is this? He yelled, anger bubbling beneath the surface. You think a pathetic little fight will change your fate? Nathan seized the moment, his body writhing beneath the men holding him. With sheer strength, he bucked upward, sending one of the henchmen sprawling backward. The commotion rattled Clara's senses, igniting an explosive momentum. Clara! Behind you! Nathan's voice bellowed, breaking her focus. In an instant, she spun, and pure terror washed over her as another thug lunged from the shadows, ready to wrestle her to the ground. Time slowed as she squared her shoulders, adrenaline surging in her veins. She raised the metal piece with both hands, its cold surface gleaming in the low light. Their eyes locked, and in that second memory flashed, the fear of her past crashing into the present. But Clara refused to surrender. A primal instinct kicked in. She swung, connecting with the thug's face, knocking him back with a satisfying crunch. The tide was turning. Nathan finally broke free, pushing one of the men off him with renewed vigor. He scrambled to his feet, breathing heavily, looking towards Clara with urgency. We have to get out. Now. Yet, before they could regroup, a figure emerged from the shadows. Adrian, furious and unyielding. You think you can escape? He thundered, weaving through the mayhem, determination etched on his face. Clara's heart sank. This was not over. Not by a long shot. They had unleashed chaos, but Adrian wasn't just any opponent. He was the puppeteer, and they were caught in an intricate web of his making. Clara, come on! Nathan yelled again, pushing her towards the exit. The door loomed ahead, but she hesitated, fear tightening around her chest like a vice. Adrian laughed, a sound filled with menace. You're both just pieces in this game, and I'm not done playing with you yet. As they sprinted towards the door, the air crackled with tension, heavy with uncertainty. The sounds of struggle faded behind them, drowned out by the realization that escape was the first step. But what lay beyond that door? Freedom or another trap set by Adrian's cruel hands? Just as they reached the threshold, a deafening crash drowned out their escape, and Clara turned to see Adrian's men closing in again. Run! Nathan shouted, a fierce urgency now resonating in his voice as he shoved her forward. But Clara froze, staring back as dread gripped her heart. Would they truly escape? Or was this another trick in Adrian's twisted game? Would they be able to fight the darkness chasing them, or would they be consumed by it? Time slipped through her fingers like sand, and in that breathless moment, she knew the real nightmare was only just beginning. Clara's instincts screamed at her to run, but something deep within the bubbling tie that bound her to Nathan rooted her to the spot. His eyes, determined yet vulnerable, pleaded for her to trust him. Now! Nathan shouted again, more forceful this time. With an involuntary shudder, she turned and sprinted out the door. It swung open, revealing a dimly lit hallway that stretched endlessly in both directions. A chill danced along her spine, a reminder of how close danger lingered behind her. They charged down the corridor, adrenaline propelling them forward, but every shadow felt alive, every echo amplified. Nathan moved beside her, his posture tense, scanning the darkness like a soldier prepared for battle. Where do we go? Clara gasped, the panic rising. Left! He barked, veering sharply. But the left, where they intended to escape, faded into a marketplace of memories both sweet and terrifying. Adrian's territory stretched far and wide, like a land of nightmares. As they rounded the corner, Clara's heart raced faster than her feet. They nearly collided into a group of figures silhouetted against a flickering light. More thugs, more danger. Back! Back! She shouted, wheeling around to find another escape. But another wall waited there, solid and unyielding. Before they could think, a scream pierced through the tension, serrated and agonizing. Clara pressed her hands to her ears, the sound slicing through her thoughts, marking the danger with a raw primal urgency. "Move," Nathan said, his voice taut with fear. He led her further into the complex, his steps quickening. The air thickened. They were being hunted. Clara spotted a door marked with peeling paint, barely hanging on its rusty hinges. "In here," she urged, gesturing frantically. Without waiting for a response, she yanked it open, a musty scent rushing out to meet her. The room was sparse, filled only with dust and shadows. It smelled of decay. They stepped inside and pressed the door shut behind them, locking it with a shaky hand. Heaving breaths echoed in the stillness. Nathan leaned against the door, his face shadowed by worry. "What now?" Clara took a moment to steady herself. "We can't stay here. We have to find a window or another way out." Suddenly, noise erupted from the other side of the door, heavy footsteps, and then voices. "Find them. They can't have gotten far." Adrian's voice was unmistakable, clear and menacing, rolling like thunder through the walls. Clara's pulse thundered in her ears. He's close. Nathan locked eyes with her, desperation hardening his features. "We can't let him catch us. I swear I won't let him take you away from me." The sharpness of his words held a promise. But with that promise came a haunting truth. They were trapped in a relentless game where every choice could lead to darkness. Clara searched the room, heart racing, each second weighing like lead. In a corner, a dirty window caught her eye, just large enough for a slim figure to slip through. "There," she gasped, pointing. They moved cautiously, inching toward the window, drawn by hope flaring within them. But as Clara approached, the noise grew louder. The pounding on the door echoed like a drumroll of impending doom. "Get ready," Nathan urged, gripping her arm. "On my count we jump." "Wait." But he was already counting down. Just then, a resounding crack exploded through the air as the door buckled under a violent blow. Clara's breath caught in her throat. They had to get out now. 3-2 the door splintered. 1. Together they surged toward the window, hearts racing, blood pounding. Would they escape, or had they just sealed their fate with that reckless leap? The jagged glass reflected the moment of their choice. The uncertainty of freedom or the dark clutches of despair loomed before them. What awaited outside? The unknown opened its arms, a tantalizing mix of hope and fear. And as they prepared to leap into the unknown, Clara heard Adrian's feral laughter ripple through the air, sending chills racing down her spine. What game was he really playing? Would they embrace freedom or drown in the chaos he had spun? The answer lay just beyond that window. Clara's mind raced as she grasped the rough window frame, her heart pounding like a wild drum. They had precious seconds, and the room felt heavy with the weight of impending chaos. Nathan's grip on her arm tightened, determination and fear mingling in his eyes. "Now," he urged, almost a whisper, as splintering would announce the relentless advance of their pursuers. Clara nodded, bracing herself against the jagged edge of the window. In one frantic motion, they leaped through the opening, the cold air slashing at her skin as they dropped into the alley below. The hard ground jolted her body awake, crashing her into reality. She glanced at Nathan, who landed with a graceful thud beside her, his face set and unreadable. "Are you okay?" he asked, breathless but focused. Clara nodded, though the truth lingered like a ghost in her chest. They had escaped the room, but danger lurked just beyond reach, a specter following them through the night. They crouched against the side of the building, scanning the alley for signs of life or death. Graffiti splashed across the walls, vibrant in the moonlight, but it offered no comfort. The murmurs of the city felt like a distant heartbeat, pulsing against the encroaching silence. "Which way?" she gasped, feeling the burn in her legs. "Right," Nathan replied, glancing down the alley as shadows danced in the faint streetlight. "We need to get lost in the crowd." Before they could move, Clara heard a sound that froze her blood, a soft shuffle followed by that unmistakable laughter. Adrian was close, too close. His cadre of thugs moved like wolves hunting and they were the prey. Go! Nathan urged, launching himself toward the street. Clara followed, her feet pounding against the pavement, each step heavy with fear. They were alive still, but for how long? As they emerged onto the street, a whirlwind of sights and sounds enveloped them. Cars sped past, their headlights slicing through the dark, illuminating the faces of late-night revelers who had no idea about the danger creeping just behind them. Just another night in chaos, but for Clara, it felt like a dream she couldn't wake from. Over there. Nathan pointed to a nearby bar with a flickering neon sign. We can blend in there. They dashed inside, the door slamming shut behind them, a barrier against the night. The muffled sounds of music and laughter filled the air, but Clara knew how easily that could turn to chaos. They squeezed into a shadowy corner, pressing close to the wall. Stay quiet, Nathan whispered, scanning the room. The bar was packed, laughter ringing out, yet she could feel the tension tighten like a noose. Clara tore her gaze away from Nathan briefly to take in the room. Did every face seem suspicious? Would they recognize the fear radiating from her? Nathan leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. We need a plan. If he finds us here, a shattering sound erupted from the back of the bar. Glass breaking and a loud crash silencing the laughter. Clara's heart leapt into her throat. Nathan, we have to stay put. He growled, eyes darting toward the source of the noise. Panic gripped Clara as she peered through the crowd, searching for a way out. The exit doors had a line of patrons, blocking any path to freedom. She saw Nathan's jaw clench in frustration. Listen, he said, urgency lacing his voice. We want to get out alive if we don't make a move. Then let us go. Clara insisted, but she could barely form the words. She was drowning in uncertainty, and just then, Adrian burst through the door, his presence electrifying, casting shadows over the room. The laughter morphed into mutters, eyes turning to the thundering figure surveying the bar with a predator's gaze. The game had shifted, and they were once again its pawns. Clara's world tilted into chaos as he began maneuvering through the crowd, a lion on the hunt. The heat of the moment suffocated, but clarity cut through as Clara turned to Nathan, determination igniting within her. We're leaving. But she realized the bar was a prison, and beyond those walls, they faced an uncertain world. Would they find an escape in the madness, or had they stepped deeper into Adrian's trap? With every heartbeat, the tension coiled tighter, and their fate hung by a thread that could snap at any moment. Adrian's eyes glinted like steel in the dim light as he surveyed the crowd. A smile crept across his lips, but it wasn't friendly, it was predatory. Clara felt her breath catch in her throat. She could practically sense the danger radiating off him, a deadly energy that began to suffocate the room. Nathan, she whispered, terror twisting her insides. We can't stay here. We have to move. He nodded, jaw tightening, his focus locked on their pursuer. But the path wasn't clear. The crowd shifted, intrigued by Adrian's arrival, unaware of the grave threat he posed. Adrian's voice rose above the murmur, dripping with mockery. You think you can hide in here? This is a small town and I know everyone. His gaze traveled, scanning the tables until it locked onto Clara and Nathan. Run! Nathan shouted, grabbing Clara's hand, pulling her toward the back of the bar. The chaos erupted around them, patrons stumbling in confusion as they surged through the crowd. Adrian called out to them, rage building in his voice. You think you can escape me? They burst through the service door, suddenly engulfed in darkness as they stepped into the narrow hallway behind the bar. The sounds of the bar faded and became muffled, almost ghostly. Which way? Clara panted, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She felt alive, a wild energy pushing her to move faster. Behind the kitchen, Nathan urged, leading her down the corridor. They turned sharply, ducking just as the door swung open with a creak, a waiter stepping out with a tray of drinks. Careful, Clara hissed, holding her breath as they pressed against the wall. The waiter eyed them suspiciously, an expression of confusion etched on his face. But before he could register their unease, Clara felt Nathan pulling her away again. In here, he whispered urgently, yanking her into a small, dimly lit supply room bursting with boxes and crates. They barely squeezed inside, bodies brushing against cardboard and glass. The air was heavy and Clara's heart raced. She felt Nathan's breath against her shoulder, hot and quick. We're hidden. For now, he said, but his eyes were wild with panic. Clara locked eyes with him, feeling the pressure build. Nathan, what's the plan? We can't stay here forever. He shook his head. We need to wait for the right moment. When he's distracted, we can't just run blindly into his arms. The thought of Adrian closing in on them made her skin crawl. She listened intently, straining to catch the sounds outside. The hum of the crowd ebbed and flowed, punctuated by laughter and music, but Adrian's voice cut sharp through it all like a knife, authoritative, unyielding. The night is young, he boasted. You've made it interesting for me, Clara. But I always get what I want. Clara's stomach dropped. His words tangled in her thoughts, each syllable laced with menace. She was in a nightmare and she couldn't wake up. Just then a loud crash shattered the fragile silence, followed by chaos shouting, the sound of glass shattering. Panic erupted as more patrons flooded the back hall, pouring in like a tide. Clara pressed further back into the room, fear rooting her to the spot. Nathan, she whispered, her throat dry. We need to get out now. But he shook his head again, eyes darting toward the doorway. A strategy formulated in his mind. Listen, when I give the signal, we break left towards the exit. Trust me. Trust you? The words came out sharper than intended, laced with frustration and fear. She knew he was trying to protect them both, but his confidence felt shaky, just like her own resolve. With a nod, she bit her lip, silently agreeing. The air crackled with tension, 1,000 threats hanging over them. Every second stretched into an eternity as they waited. When the chaos outside reached a fever pitch, Nathan finally gripped her arm. Their breathing synchronized, adrenaline dulled her senses for a brief moment. And then they burst out into the fray, eyes wide with fear and purpose. Moments later, explosively bright lights illuminated the corridor from behind, and Clara knew Adrian would not let them slip away again. She had to make a choice: trust Nathan and risk everything, or face Adrian alone. But would they even survive the leap into the night? The decision loomed, heavy on her chest, and she took Nathan's hand, feeling the connection spark under the threat of darkness. Would this be their final stand, or could they turn the tide and outsmart the predator once more? The world outside felt surreal, a vibrant chaos swirling around a muted vortex where Clara and Nathan stood side by side in a fog of uncertainty. They had just barged out of the tight supply room, suddenly enveloped in a raucous atmosphere filled with frenzied energy. Their hearts pounded, racing in sync with the unpredictable rhythm of the bar. Clara's mind swirled with fears, but determination gripped her harder than ever. Stay close to me, Nathan yelled amidst the jangling laughter and chaotic voices. She could see the flickering lights above them, dancing to the rhythm of a pulsing bass that vibrated through her bones. Her heart felt like it was in her throat, but as she met Nathan's fierce gaze, something surged within her, a fierce protectiveness ignited alongside her fear. They crashed into the crowd, bodies bumping and shoving as they navigated through the mass. The bar had transformed into a battleground, and Adrian's presence cast a long shadow over them. But she was ready to fight right beside Nathan if it came to that. Over there. Nathan pointed to a side exit that looked promisingly clear. Clara nodded, feeling adrenaline fuel her every step, and together they dashed toward it. But twist! Adrian emerged suddenly from behind a table, a shadow with sinister intent, and everything slowed down. His piercing eyes found Clara's, and the hunt was on. Chaos erupted. The room spun as Nathan instinctively pushed her behind him, positioning himself as her shield. Get back! Nathan spat defiantly, his muscles taut, ready to battle the beast that Adrian had unleashed. Adrian merely laughed, a dark sound filled with disdain. Run, hide, but you can't escape your fate. The menace in his voice sliced through the din, but it only catalyzed Clara's resolve. She would not be defined by Adrian's terror. Fueled by pure adrenaline, Clara surged forward, adrenaline making her stronger. Don't you dare threaten him! She screamed, stepping alongside Nathan, feeling like a coiled spring ready to snap. Adrian's eyes darkened and he lunged, but just then, the crowd surged forward, offering a distraction that set Clara's heart racing with hope. Now! Nathan hissed, pulling Clara along as they ducked and weaved through the mass of bodies. They erupted outside, and fresh air washed over them as they stumbled into the night. The blaring honks of the city filled their ears, a loud mix of freedom and peril. They could hear vehicles rushing past, The street was alive, but Clara knew that it was temporary safety. They had to find a more secure refuge. There, she gasped, pointing toward a dimly lit alley. They raced toward it, feet pounding against the cracked pavement. The shadows wrapped around them as they ducked into the alley, breathing heavily but alive, the thrill of survival coursing through their veins. But the freedom felt so precarious. The ghost of Adrian lingered behind, and the laughter echoing from the bar was a haunting reminder of the game still in play. They rounded a corner, desperation burning in Clara's chest. Just ahead, a narrow door stood ajar, a service entrance leading to another building. "Hope this leads somewhere," Nathan said, exhaling quickly. As they slipped inside, the darkness enveloped them once more, easing into the quiet. "Do you think we lost him?" Clara whispered, trying to calm the insatiable tremor of worry in her veins. "For now. He is clever, but we're cleverer," Nathan replied, determination edging every syllable. Clara pressed her back against the wall, feeling his warmth radiate beside her, a comforting presence amid the tension. As they collected themselves in silence, the reality of what had passed began to set in. Clara felt sharp emotional pangs coursing through her, panic and pain. They were on the brink of something big, something life-altering. Yet, the fear of losing Nathan clawed at her heart. "Are you okay?" Nathan finally asked, his voice low and soothing, but Clara could see the strain etched on his face. She nodded, though the truth weighed heavily on her heart. "I will be once this is over," she whispered. The fear of what lay ahead loomed big, but she would not let it consume her. Just then, the distant sound of voices echoed through the hallway behind them, a chilling reminder that time was running out. "Let us move," Nathan urged, and they made their way forward, pushing through the darkness, relying on each other's strength as they navigated toward an uncertain destination. Days and nights felt merged into one as they moved, every corner holding the potential for danger. They needed to outsmart Adrian, and this sourced the adrenaline rushing through Clara's veins. With Nathan by her side, she fight this and they come out on the other side together, alive, forged through fire. They finally emerged from the building out into the glow of streetlights. The skyline loomed above them. Clara looked around, her heart pounding in a flutter of uncertainty. Did they dare hope for safety? "We just need to reach my car," Nathan whispered, scanning the street quickly. Clara nodded and they took off, adrenaline pushing them forward until they reached a black SUV parked around the corner. The night felt electric, weighty, a moment crystallized in time, their hearts racing as they slipped into the vehicle. Nathan's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. As he started the engine, Clara felt the weight lift slightly, but knew they weren't out of the woods yet. "Now what?" she breathed, glancing at him, searching his face for answers. "We drive far away from here and let windshield wipe away the darkness," he replied, determination painting his features, giving Clara confidence with that. They pulled away from the curb, merging into the chaotic rhythm of the city roads. In the safety of the car, surrounded by engine hum, they could finally breathe a little easier. The uncertainty of what lay ahead breathed down their necks, but they wouldn't let it choke them just yet. Clara glanced over at Nathan, the vulnerability and strength intermingling in his expression. "Regardless of what happens next, I'm fighting for this," she said, her voice fierce and unwavering. Nathan met her gaze, a flicker of admiration shining through. "So am I," he replied, the weight of his words settling in an unbreakable bond forged from chaos and trust. As they drove into the night, hope filled the space between them, a reminder that even amidst darkness, their shared strength illuminated a way forward. This was their journey, and they'd face whatever came next side by side. But little did they know, Adrian's game wasn't over yet. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of the exclusive content coming up next. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And don't forget, flood the comments with your reactions, theories, and what you think will happen next. This is the moment to show your support. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.